The Hot Seat.
Welcome to the Hot Seat, a debate segment where ideas clash and insights spark. I'm your host, Hongbin Jeong. Now, when you're just starting out in your career, there's one question almost all of us grapple with. Should you go for the job that pays well or the one that promises growth, passion, and potential? On one hand, salary gives you immediate rewards, from financial independence from your parents, the ability to support loved ones, or maybe even a down payment on that BTO flat. But on the other hand, opportunity can be the slow burn that pays off later, like learning new skills and doing work that feels meaningful. For younger workers today, the stakes feel even higher. With rising cost of living, unstable job markets, and an ever-changing career landscape, that first job can feel like a make or break decision. So which path sets you up best for the long haul? Security now or growth for later? Well, before we hear from our guests and dive deeper into this debate, here's a disclaimer. The views and arguments presented by our interviewees do not necessarily reflect their personal beliefs or opinions. Instead, they are here to provide a fresh perspective on the topic at hand. And so joining us today is Spark Chen, who is an HR executive, to share with us why younger workers should focus on opportunities. And we also have Marcus Goh, who's a senior financial consultant, who will try to convince us why younger workers should focus on salary instead. Welcome to the show, both.
Hello everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, I want to start off this discussion by asking both of you, when you guys first started working, did you follow the money or the mission? And what impact did that decision have on your career path? Maybe Spark, we can go with you.
Yeah, sure, great. Well, thank you for having me. I think to quickly jump into the question, when I started my career, I actually started very recently. When I was a student, I did quite a few internships, and I think for me, it was always about opportunity. Yeah.
Okay. And Marcus?
For me, I started really quite focused on getting salary because I think early on I wanted to be able to be financially independent and also be able to start providing for my parents, as they're growing old. I think that was quite a key focus, making sure that I had enough money in the bank before, I guess, venturing into passion projects.
All right. Well, a June 2025 Randstad survey revealed that work-life balance is now Singapore workers' top priority, even ahead of salary. However, a Deloitte 2025 Gen Z and Millennial survey found that 62% of Gen Z and 52% of Millennials live paycheck to paycheck. So, Marcus, in an era where younger Singaporeans, are turning to purpose and balance, if employees focus on salary, aren't they letting monetary compensation steer their career decisions from day one?
I think to answer your question, it's really what is that individual going through? Because I think if we were to put aside passion, there are some people really having to work for money to be able to provide for family. And I think for these people, I think it's a necessity more than a choice.
Right.
And I think in that respect, I can respect a person having to, pick up work quickly just for the salary. But in the long run, I think, just purely focusing on money, I think is a bad strategy. Being able to quickly establish yourself financially, being able to save enough to be able to provide for yourself, and then I think being able to explore what you wish, what you're passionate about. I think that's, if you ask me, a more sustainable strategy.
Okay. Well, Spark, with many young Singaporeans living paycheck to paycheck, is it realistic to, defer financial stability in pursuit of intangible opportunity? I mean, what about those who can't afford to gamble on unpaid internships or, low-paying roles?
Absolutely. I think it's a very valid concern about, being able to afford such a situation, especially for students who don't have a very strong financial background, right? However, in this case, I do think that we are not deferring the financial stability, but it's more about designing a career that builds it in the long run, right? For example, when it comes to opportunity, I don't think it's a very tangible thing. In fact, a lot of it cannot really be measured. For example, in terms of skill acquisition, network expansion, and future earning power. All these three elements is almost invisible if you are looking at it in the short run. However, in the long run, I think it really allows you to boost your skill sets and your capability to make more in the future. And at the same time, I think it's not a either or, but rather like a strategic alignment for both. Yeah.
Okay. Well, according to a 2024 LinkedIn report, Gen Z workers switch jobs more frequently than previous generations, often staying in roles for less than 2 years. And for some, this reflects a bold pursuit of growth, right? For others, it raises concerns about stability, loyalty, and whether they're chasing short-term wins at the expense of long-term career death. So if, Gen Z job hops in search of opportunities, Spark, how do they build credibility or, deep expertise in any one role? Could too much change backfire in the long run?
Thank you for the question. I think that's a very valid question, right? In terms of if, I think there's a lot of doubts about switching jobs, asking things like, hey, if you are here for 3 months for this summer, then you shift over to another company for another 3 months, then what are you truly learning? What are you really getting? What is your loyalty about? But I think if we were to look at it from another angle, having this kind of exposure really allows students and young workers to be able to see the same scope of work, but from different industries. Then that itself allows them to kind of beef up their skill sets. They'll be able to handle the same task but with different situations. That's number one. Number two is also about adding to their skill sets as well, dealing with different people. For example, if I were to take HR as a case study, HR itself by nature it's about a few different elements, right? There's hiring, there's comms and ben, and then there's employee engagement, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to different industries, HR functions differently. So I would say if a young worker that's able to, or in this case a student that's able to do his internship at different industries, maybe from tech to F&B, to maybe social media, news media, all this will allow him to learn HR from all kinds of different perspectives. And that in the future actually allows him to become a HR that's able to deal with different problems that's presented to him. Yeah.
Right. I never thought of the situation in that way because I've always, been taught by my parents especially that, you can't really jump from one ship to another so often. You need to stay at least 3 years in one company before you switch jobs. It's not a good thing, But I mean, that's a great perspective that you highlighted there. It does help, gain that exposure to different industries.
Yep.
Well, then, Marcus, isn't salary chasing one of the biggest drivers of job hopping today, though? I mean, if younger workers keep jumping for higher pay, how do they demonstrate loyalty?
I think salary chasing definitely does play a role. But I think in my years of experience of talking to clients over 7 years, I've seen my own clients go through different jobs, and I have to say salary might be one factor, but there are a lot of other factors involved.
Okay.
I think when someone makes a decision, I think things like mentorship and even purpose and meaning can drive a decision. But let's just say, if considering someone who is just salary chasing, I think in short term, it does make sense if you really need the salary to support a family member to find your own financial independence. I think that's perfectly valid, right? But I think in the long run, if you just solely against salary focus, I think you're missing the whole point. If you're just breaking relationships and skipping out on the sort of alignment with long-term values for the sake of an extra dollar, I think you'd be mistaken. And I think to the point about loyalty, I don't know. I have quite a different take on it because from my own personal experience, I think loyalty can be expressed in a different way. To me, it could be expressed in a way of leaving the organization a better place than you found it. And I think that is sort of a higher level of loyalty, right? Not leaving with if you do need to jump to the next job, to not leave a void, leave leave with good terms with your boss. And in fact, I think big shout out, to my ex-boss is, maybe he's going to listen to this, but he's someone I still maintain very good relationship with. He continues to mentor me in a lot of ways. And I think loyalty in that way is sort of demonstrated in a separate way than just, serving a job function for an organization for the sake of it.
Right.
I think being able to I don't know, it sounds very selfish, but I feel like if you're just staying in a job because of, presenting yourself a certain way and missing out on, your potential growth and your own potential impact, and I guess your own hopes and dreams, then I think it's also missing the point, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I think loyalty can be demonstrated in so many other ways.
Right. I think you guys also helped me realize that jumping ship doesn't mean that you're jumping ship for, higher pay. I mean, I think that's kind of the stereotypical or the misconception that a lot of people have when they see people jumping ship so many times. Oh, they're chasing for money. But anyways, industries like tech and media, they evolve rapidly. Skills and adaptability often outweigh salary history, especially with the advent of AI and machine learning. I mean, just last year alone, rapid changes in the job market made it difficult for both job seekers and employers to find suitable matches. It looks like about 6 in 10 workers found that the job search got more difficult in 2024, according to a poll of more than 1,000 Singapore workers conducted over November and December of 2024. So, Marcus, in fast evolving industries, isn't adaptability and skill building more valuable than chasing the next biggest paycheck?
I think coming back to the point, I feel if you're chasing the next biggest a bigger paycheck for a valid reason, to support a family member to, for your own livelihood, I think it's very valid. But again, I actually align with what you're saying. If you're just job hopping for the sake of earning more, but forsaking growth in the sense of increasing your skills and your abilities, I think in the long run you'll also be missing out, because while I think salary is a important thing to keep you going and motivated, ultimately I think the best outcome for a person, an employee, an employer, is to be able to have the employee in a state where finances are not a worry or something to be concerned about, and they can be fully focused, being able to apply themselves in their employment. And I think it's really up to the employer and the employee, how they're going to communicate to find a salary that is suitable to keep your employees staying. I don't know if it's appropriate to ask, but I don't know. Spark is in HR, right? So I'm curious to hear if salary is something that he sees as important in keeping an employee or getting an employee into your company.
Well, I do definitely agree with you that salary is actually a very fundamental thing. Like when I talk about opportunities, right? I mentioned earlier it's a strategic alignment, but I do agree with you. Having salary as a foundation is very important. Like if we were to look at the Maslow's needs hierarchy, food, water, shelter, all these are basic needs of humanity itself, right? So if those things are not being satisfied, then I would say it's very difficult for us to pursue opportunity, right? So given that we have a livable wage, given that we are okay with this amount of money, considering us being a student or maybe being a young adult, we could live life not at the fullest yet. We could don't go for, travel twice a year or 3 times a year, but rather use this time and use this energy for an opportunity that allows us to grow further in the future. So coming back to the HR track, I think for all the employees, all the young workers out there listening to this episode, I can fully understand that, having that paycheck is very important and number one choice of many people. But at the same time, I observe that there's a trend going on where we, the younger workers, actually treasure more of a work-life balance. For example, you could be paying me less, but I would like to have more freedom in my life because, I was having a conversation conversation with Marcus earlier, I think that, his ability to have time on his own, he's able to control what he does in a day. That's fantastic. That's really a dream life of many, many young people, including myself. So I do think that, having a foundational salary is very important, but at the same time, people start to recognize what's also important in their life. Time with family, for example, being able to travel around the world, for example, and being able to spend time with their loved ones, for example. All these are very, very important.
Yeah.
So, yes, my view would be salary is a foundation, and then we start to choose other priorities in life now.
Okay. Then on that note, if salary isn't the priority, Spark, how do young workers ensure that they're building transferable skills and not just taking on tasks that don't really help them grow or switch fields?
Right. So I think given the AI trend, the whole technology advancement trend that's happening, I think in the past decade, I would say, really what's happening is that people start to recognize that theory, for example, learning what you learn in school, like for myself, when I was back in uni, I went to class every day, and I went to class thinking that, hey, are they really applicable in my life? Can I really use it? And when I went to my first internship, I realized sometimes the theory that you pick up is not very applicable in real life, because the real life problem is more complicated, it's more technical, and it involves human, right? And when it involves human, it becomes it's not straightforward anymore. That's why I would say, how do young people nowadays upgrade themselves to adapt to this situation? Is really about learning how to solve problems, right? And that skill set, it's a very transferable skill set. Being able to connect with people, for example, communication skills, for example, these are very important things in not just in career, but in life. You're able to pull different resources from different areas, connect people together, and build a community to deal with one issue that helps to deal with another issue. I think these are the very important abilities that young people are picking up nowadays.
Okay. Well, back in March, Manpower Minister Tan Si-ling urged undergraduates to put themselves out there and gain real-world experience to improve their employability instead of focusing on the pay that's going to come along with the internship. But I mean, there are also personal stories of young workers caught in unpaid or, exploitative roles sold as so-called opportunities. So, Spark, don't you think that the term opportunity can be misused by employers to justify unpaid or low-paid labor?
Absolutely, and I have to say, unfortunately, yes, it is true that a lot of employer out there are using this term opportunity and kind of exploiting the young workers in Singapore. Especially, I would say, personal experience when I was back in maybe my year 3 or year 2 when I was looking for internship. I found this opportunity at Big Four, the accounting firms. I won't mention the names, but I realized they are the ones that's paying, one of them at least, is not paying very high. In fact, it's way below the market standard. But I think the way they marketed that position was, we are Big Four. We are able to, provide you the opportunity that you will not find it anywhere else. And a lot of students are really rushing for it because of the name, because of the fame, because of the so-called potential learning opportunities you might get. So, of course, I took the opportunity for the interview. I went in, I talked to the team, I learned about what I would do. Then I have to say I left very disappointed because I realized there was nothing substantial for that internship itself, right? There was a lot of what we call Saigon stuff, right? It's just very basic things that maybe wouldn't allow me to grow a lot, right? As a HR student back then, I was looking for an opportunity that allows me to learn how to work with people, how to build maybe learning materials for the employee, how to create engagement, but none of this was being provided to me. It was purely a very simple, you come in, you make some photocopies, you set up the computers and stuff like that. So that's why I actually went over to another semiconductor company. I still remember this at that very interview. My ex-boss as well, same as Marcus, I'm also very grateful for my ex-boss. Yeah, he told me this very thing that, hey, coming here, you will have to work on your feet 24/7. Like, I think figuratively, not really, but it's the sense of urgency that's been provided to me at that interview that made me feel like, I'm rather go for this, right? I'd rather kind of suffer through the challenges I will face at this company than to sit back and make photocopies for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, some companies really do exploit students, but, or rather, therefore it's very important for us to understand what is the real opportunity we're talking about here.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely agree with you. I've been in an internship when I was just going around getting coffee for
Yeah.
everybody and
Yeah.
wasn't really learning anything.
Mhm, mhm.
But on the other hand, then, Marcus, aren't we reinforcing a system where only the privileged can gain experience by, telling students not to think about pay during internships, especially?
I feel to me it's actually quite tricky. So I mean, yeah, even the question itself is a bit tricky to understand. But I feel partly it's about awareness. So as a student, I think as an individual, you need to ask yourself, right? Is your employee actually sort of taking advantage of the situation and basically just underpaying or getting free labor, in fact, and but at the same time, I feel like if it was so competitive, like the job role is so attractive, then it really sort of does lead to what you pointed out, right? Only privileged people who have some kind of existing capital or savings to be able to put themselves in such roles, unpaid or low paid internships for a long time. But yeah, I guess again back to my point. I think it's awareness and also balance, right? I mean, knowing where to draw the line as a student and not allowing employers in the market to take advantage of the position they have against potential employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, burnout and disengagement are rising, even among well paid workers. Last year, an ST article noted that nearly half of Singapore workers feel the same way. Now, based on a survey done by TELUS Health, the reason is attributed to one thing: too much work. So, Marcus, if high paying jobs are also contributing to poor mental health, then how would you justify encouraging younger workers to prioritize salary if it's going to affect their health?
Wow. Uh, this is actually quite a personal question for me.
Okay.
Because I have, at the cost or expense of my own health, put myself in situations where I overcommit in terms of what I need to deliver. I'm overloaded with meetings, and I think all for the sake of earning an extra dollar. So I mean, my own personal advice would be find that balance. I think salary is important for you to sustain a certain lifestyle, but I think it's also important to consider that what you're sacrificing. I think Spark pointed it out quite nicely just now that the time with your family, something that is aligned with your mission. I think that once you establish a certain baseline or foundation of financial security, then you got to ask yourself, what's the extra salary going to do for you? Because if it's just in the endless pursuit of material sort of objects and sort of material definitions of success, there's no end, right? Yeah. So I think it's partly about how you manage your own desires, but at the same time also to realize that it's also important in the beginning to, I don't know, man. I guess it's something that's taught to me, like you mentioned, you were brought up in that environment, but it's taught to me to be by my parents at least, to be financially independent, to be able to take care of yourself and those around you. I think that's something that, for me at least, I want to say I can do before I start, being able to explore, more passion projects and more things that align with my mission. And even Spark was saying just now, the freedom I have to, sort of arrange my time. I don't take it for granted, because I think in the earlier years of my business, at least, there was no blood, but I guess at least sweat and tears were there to really push myself through to work hard for that salary.
Right.
And then with that salary now, I feel the comfort and relative sort of freedom to be able to explore things that are more aligned with my mission. And I think that's what I would advise is focus on building a salary first. There's nothing wrong in that, making sure that you find your financial stability and security, but at the same time to not lose sight of the bigger goal, right?
Right.
I think money won't satisfy everything. So yeah, I mean, hopefully answers the question.
All right. Well, speaking of financial stability here, Spark, if someone chases growth but never gains financial stability, isn't their career at risk too? I mean, how do you advise balancing passion with paycheck?
That is a very interesting question. Balancing finance and passion and paycheck, right? Passion and paycheck. I think let's put it this way, right? Passion, it's a very interesting term, and it's also a very intangible term, right? Having passion in career, especially, it could be dangerous. Sometimes you could be chasing your passion, working for the sake of working for the fulfillment, sense of fulfillment, for example, and you forget about this salary thing, right? Whether I'm getting paid or not, it's fine. I just want to work on this project. I think it's great. It's very admirable to have that kind of fire in you, but at the end of the day, we also need to once again look at the fundamental things that we need in life, right? Shelter, food, water, all these things. It requires money, and we have to be realistic at some point of time in life, because at the end of the day, if you don't have that foundation, your passion is not going to be able to continue.
Right.
If you can't fit yourself, if you can't have a house, if you can't help your loved ones, and at one point of time, you can no longer continue what you are passionate about. So what I would advise, I wouldn't say advice, just what I thought, right? It's you got to balance that out. You got to be able to somehow translate your passion into paycheck as well, that can carry you forward in the long run. And as I mentioned earlier, I think at the early days of your career, perhaps, we can prioritize opportunity. And again, I think I want to emphasize that opportunity here doesn't mean that whoever gives me a job, that's an opportunity. No, I think opportunity when it comes to career, it has to be impactful. It has to be meaningful. All these things that you do at this job or position needs to fulfill those criteria. You need to grow from it. You need to learn things from it. If you're learning nothing and just making photocopies or like what you mentioned earlier, making coffee, I think you better off get away from it as fast as possible, right? Because we don't have the time and resources to waste. And I think graduating last year really made me feel like, wow, time flies like crazy, Yeah, as a student, you don't really pay attention to time, but once you graduate, it's just like everybody's getting a job, everybody's getting promoted, some of them are getting married, some of them getting kids. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? So to me personally, time is very, very important, very precious as well. That's why it's important to understand what is a real opportunity and what is a false opportunity. So to answer your question, how do we balance passion and paycheck? It's all about having the fundamental needs fulfilled first, then go and pursue your passion.
All right. Well, I think we've got some great insights and perspectives from both of you. Thank you so much both for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We've been speaking to Spark Chen, who's a HR executive, and Marcus Goh, who's a senior financial consultant. Do check out our YouTube channel as well if you want to catch the full video of this debate. Tune in again next week for another hot seat. I've been your host, Hongbin Jeong.
Money FM 89.3